you guys last week, maybe the week before, you put out a document discussing returning to school, and let's just talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
I've glanced through it some. It outlines, how you guys vaguely, I don't know if it's vaguely is the proper word. It seems everything seems fluid right now through COVID-19.
That is correct.
So day one, how do we expect day one to go when kids return to school?
Okay. Yes, last week we did put out a return to learn plan. It is in draft form, and it will probably remain in draft form for quite a while because, like you said, it's a very fluid situation, and it seems that things change. The guidance from the Department of Ed, guidance from the CDC, Mahaska County Public Health, our guidance is changing constantly, and so our plan will remain in draft form probably for a long time. But right now, as of today, we are planning to have the kids back on August 24th for the first day of school. We are also planning some jump start, summer school, back to school activities the first few weeks of August to get kids back in smaller groups and back to school. So there'll be more information coming about that soon. But day one, we are planning for all kids back to school. We do have an option of online learning for families or students who have health concerns or someone in their family has a health concern. So we will have a virtual option for those students to take advantage of, at least for the first trimester, if not for the whole year, depending on how this the coronavirus goes for the rest of the year and the vaccines and all those kinds of things. So day one, we are putting all kinds of protocols into place to help the kids socially distance and protect themselves when they are not socially distanced. Obviously, it looks a little different at each of the buildings, and we do have Ms. McGlothlen here from the elementary and Mr. Scholes from the middle school that can talk a little bit more specifically, but like you said, the situation's fluid, so something that we might say is going to happen today could change tomorrow based on the guidance that we receive. So, Sarah, Mark, do you want to add anything about day one, what you're thinking about?
Well, from the middle school's perspective, we're just excited to be able to have kids back. I mean, everybody's been itching to come back to school. We miss the kids desperately, and I hope that they miss us. But we're excited to be able to get them back in the building, if at all possible. Measures of, face masks and, taking temperatures to be proactive, wanting to be more proactive rather than reactive through situations. And just, teaching the kids the proper way to navigate COVID-19. It's a new phase in everybody's lives, and we want to make sure that they're taking the proper health and safety measures on a daily basis. So there's going to have to be some training that goes with that, not just with staff, but with students as well. So we're just excited to have everybody coming back to us in some form or another.
We've really been spending time taking a look at the processes and procedures that we already have at the elementary and what we would need to do to modify some of those and yet keep the day as normal as possible for the students that we have in the building. So really looking at how do our kids transition in the building, what modifications might we need to do to that, how do kids have lunch in the building and what modifications might we need to look at for that. And in all of that, working really hard to keep the day as normal as possible for our students and our staff.
So, other than the kindergartners, they're all going to have a perception of what school was like when you started it. So we're going to see masks, we're going to see hand sanitizer, or what are we going to see as kids enter the building to help cause or be precautionary?
You are going to see hand sanitizer in all rooms, and we'll be putting in some processes and procedures for kids to use that when entering rooms and exiting rooms. We are going to distribute masks and not require, but strongly suggest that students wear masks when they're in situations where social distancing is not possible. We do not foresee kids having masks on all day long. We don't think that that's healthy for kids, but there are certain times that they will want to have masks on. Again, we will not require it, but we are going to strongly suggest that there will be times that it needs to happen. We are looking at and pricing right now masks for all kids so that we can make sure that they all have them available should they want to wear them. We're also looking at dividers and ways to protect kids when there's situations where there's multiple kids together. We are going to limit visitors in the building. We are going to limit all school activities. There will not be all school assemblies or gatherings. We'll try to keep the groups smaller, but like Ms. McGlothlen said, we do want the day to be as normal as possible. We don't want it to be so rigid that the kids aren't enjoying their time at school. So how do we balance keeping things as normal as possible and fun for kids, but yet keeping them safe at school?
I was gonna say that'll be, the PBIS, the lunch hour. How do we handle lunch hour? Do kids go back to their rooms with their trays? I grew up in Montezuma, and that was how we did it. Every elementary student every day went and got their tray, and they went back to their elementary. So I don't know how you're going to handle lunch hour where there's large gatherings of kids, different things like that.
Sure. I will say again, it's fluid, and we are still in the planning processes. But I know Sarah's got some ideas about that.
So we've looked at our lunchroom. We're fortunate that we have a rather large lunchroom, and the idea of spacing out our tables more, the potential of using some different areas in the building that we haven't used before for lunch. We have a K2 and a 3-5 activity area, so we're exploring whether or not using those as opportunities to serve lunch, to spread kids out a little more. We've talked about using the classrooms if we need to. So at this point, we're kind of exploring what those options are and what that could look like for students.
Okay.
How about at the middle school,
At the
Mark?
middle schools?
What are you guys working on?
We're exploring all options as well at this point. I mean, naturally in our commons cafeteria area, it's generally a very large crowd. Typically we've always had 3 different lunch sections on a daily basis. And so we're looking into potentially having lunches in classrooms as opposed to bringing waves of kids down to the cafeteria. And so the whole format for that and the whole protocol for that will obviously potentially change given the circumstance. And so excited to work with our new food service folks to try to navigate that. And I think we're going to come up with a really good comprehensive plan once the school year begins.
Talking about, we just talked about lunch plans, how that might be a little different, might be the same. But let's just assume COVID makes it into the school system. What are your plans for that, for students, for the staff? Is there staff that's maybe worried that they'll catch COVID because they're older, maybe more vulnerable? So we'll talk about some of those COVID instances and how it might impact.
Sure. We do have 3 plans in place. One is the face-to-face, which is what we're starting with in August. We also have a hybrid plan in place, which could look very different. Some kids online, some kids in class, alternating days with kids in class, alternating weeks, those kinds of things to lower the amount of students that are in the building. And so if COVID becomes more of an issue in Oskaloosa or Mahaska County or in Oskaloosa schools, we can flow from one plan to the next, so from the face-to-face to the hybrid plan. We also have an all-online option where all kids are online like we were in the spring that we can move to as well. We do have protocols in place for notifying families and contact tracing if there happens to be a positive case in the school system. I know there are parents worried, I know there are staff worried about their safety when it comes to this virus. That's why it is important for us to have those safety measures in place for the staff and the students to protect everyone, because the staff and student safety is one of our top priorities here at Oskaloosa Schools, and we want everyone to feel safe. So as we move through the 3 models of the plan, I guess I'm hoping that we can stay all face-to-face for the whole year because, we keep things under control and it starts to improve. But we do have plans in place so that if that does not happen and we need to phase into other plans, we're ready for that. We have 7 different committees working on 7 different areas, from technology, infrastructure, social emotional health, data, academics, leadership, did I miss one? I don't know if I named all 7. But we have different infrastructure. We have different team leaders and representatives on teams working on plans for all 3 of those scenarios, face-to-face, a hybrid model, and an all-online option.
Okay. Well, if I'm going back to, I mean, the end of, well, it was the middle of March, and the buildings cleared out, and everything was quite different.
Very.
Some students weren't able to utilize online as well as they would like because they lack the internet connectivity to be able. Do we have a plan or something in place to help students if that was to become mandatory or something that we had to do online learning, that students would have internet access?
Yes, that's the Technology and Infrastructure Committee. They're working on that. The survey that the state put out, we had about 600 and some families complete that survey. We are just now getting that data. That survey should help us identify students who don't have connectivity or have connectivity issues. And I know that this spring we had really good participation by our students. They can speak more specifically as to their buildings, but we got down to identifying who didn't have internet access and worked on paper packets type materials for them to keep them engaged. So I think we have a good handle on that. If we go required online learning, we will have to make sure we have those families identified and make sure we have assistance and support for them as we move forward with that. I'm very hopeful that we don't get to that required online where everyone is having to be online, but I do know it's a possibility. So we do have a team working on that as well. Looking at devices, making sure everyone has a device that needs it, and then connectivity. Okay. Anything you two want to add in terms of identifying kids that don't have internet?
I would say at the elementary level, at least in our 1st grade through 5th grade students, we have a pretty strong idea of who struggled getting access in the spring. We were really excited. We had almost 94% of our students who did engage at some level with our online learning for the last 6 weeks of school, with over half of those students being they engaged every single week that we had it. So we feel pretty confident if we do have to go to that online learning that we can get over the hurdles for those last few students who were unable to engage.
Did you, what kind of hurdles or problems did we have to overcome? I mean, because let's face it, we switched gears really quick. Were you happy with the results that students were still learning? I mean, you had to pivot quickly, and so did the students. So were you happy with those results? I mean, you had a 94% response rate, but were you happy with the results that you believed that students were actually still learning?
Yeah. Under the circumstances that we were under, I was very pleased with our participation rates, with our student engagement. You know, for as quickly as we turned that around, we had great participation and great engagement at all 3 buildings. Could it be better? Absolutely. And if we go to a required format and this ends up happening again, we've had a little bit more time to plan for that, and it will be even better. But for having to turn it around as quickly as we did, our teachers, our staff, our principals did an amazing job of having things ready and getting things out and adjusting as we learned and got feedback from parents and students about how to make it better and easier for them. So I was pleased.
I would add to that, our parents did an amazing job. We had a huge learning curve. They had a huge learning curve with their students, having to learn the different platforms that we were utilizing to help our students learn and helping real little ones get online, who usually have teachers helping them do that. I thought we did an extremely good job working all together as a community to roll that out.
I completely agree with that as well, and you know, the big piece that I feel like was super important with that delivery those last 6 weeks was the social emotional component of it. If nothing else, we succeeded in making sure that we were contacting kids and making sure that they were doing well and that their needs were being met. And so, if nothing else, I think we were able to continue and keep that social emotional relationship piece with those kids going in to this next school year, which will be all the more advantageous for us and for the students and parents as well.
Many times during times of, trouble, there are good things that come out of that. So what sorts of things did you guys learn? What did you find that, hey, this really works, this might be something, even if we didn't have COVID, we should have thought of or done beforehand? So is there any examples that the school system ran across through that time?
Well, I have one as a whole district, but the online learning piece, we had some students who were not excelling in the classroom and then ended up excelling online. So I think it opened our eyes a little bit to that online piece, that there are some students that participate more, connect more with their teacher, actually communicate with their teacher online, whereas they didn't necessarily in person. So we had some success stories with some students that were struggling before this happened. So there is definitely a place for online learning for some of our students. It's not for everyone, and some kids find it much more difficult. But there is a certain portion of the population where we saw some big successes. The other thing that I guess just me, from a district viewpoint, is how everybody did come together and work together to do what was best for kids and get the information out, from the teachers to the parents to the students to the admin to the board. Just everyone, the staff, the custodians, the food service people, volunteers coming to help with serve lunches and things. Just everyone pulling together to help us navigate the situation was amazing to see. Do you guys have some success stories?
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Paula said here, we had a lot of the kids too that maybe didn't always have the same success at school as they did when they were doing this online piece, and so that was really encouraging. And the other piece was just the all hands on deck approach that the parents and the staff took on. We had staff members that were willing to run assignments to kids' homes for those kids and parents who did not have internet access. And so people took on this great attitude that we can be solution focused and we can solve this, we can get the kids what they need and still find a way to have them succeed. And so I'm really proud of that, at least from my building's perspective.
I would say one of the successes that has come out of it is the growth in technology skills for our staff. When it is sink or swim, you learn how to swim pretty quickly, and I think through those 6 weeks we have found several different applications technology-wise that we hadn't been using to their fullest potential with our students, and teachers have come to respect and have found a place within the learning to utilize those resources at a higher degree with our students.
Talking about trying to help kids learn, so since you learned that some of them do better in an online environment, have you considered that, well, maybe we need to involve that a little bit more in their learning plan, or a student needs to maybe do that, or are you really trying to still stick with it being an in-person sort of learning scenario?
Well, our main focus will always continue to be in-person learning, but I am working with Angela Hansen right now on our online school application. So in order to provide that on a regular basis, not in a COVID situation, you do have to have your online curriculum approved through the Department of Education. And so Angela and I are working on that application as we speak. And I don't know the timeline for getting that approved, but we do recognize that is something that we need to put in our tool bag here for students in Oskaloosa that it works for. So more information about that, but we're looking at that online curriculum and working to get it approved by the Department of Education so we can add that.
So we already found out we won't be doing all school assemblies or large group assemblies or things. Let's talk about the other activities that go on. So we're at the end of summer sports right now. I think that has been a learning experience too for districts. And so as football comes around, volleyball, all of those fall sports, and people are heading indoors, what's that going to look like for Oskaloosa sports?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball and I wish I could tell you exactly what that was going to look like, but and I also hope that our summer sports aren't quite over yet, because we're getting up there to state tournament time, so I hope that they continue on to the state tournament, both softball and baseball. They're looking awfully good, so that's exciting. As of today, we are opening back up our weight rooms and our open gyms and 7-on-7 football camp. We are following the guidelines from the Iowa High School Athletic Association and the Girls Athletic Union, as well as the Department of Education, for all of the safety protocols in place for that. So that's happening today. As of today, those things will start. And so, moving forward into the fall, right now we're planning on those activities, again, pending the guidance from those associations, and that we can meet the guidelines that they set out. So there are specific cleaning protocols and who can actually be there and what has to happen with the students. So we are moving forward using their guidance.
Fans in the stands might see things a little different too.
Very much so.
Some distancing sort of protocols in place, things like that.
Very much so. And we are limiting guests, visitors. We are at the buildings, we are at the at practices and those kinds of things, open gyms. It really is the coach and the kids, again, to limit the exposure for the kids. Weight rooms, you have to sign up. We have small groups and you have to sign up for a time, and you have to keep the same time every week so that we know who you've been with if anyone comes down with a positive case. But those are just some of the protocols that have been suggested that we're following.
Things like band. So
Band.
let's face it, you can't play a trumpet very well with a face mask on.
Yep, we got the band guidance and the vocal music guidance as well, and we're working our way through that. I know that they're gearing up to do some individual lessons, and they're wanting to do band camp here towards the end of July. And I know that's very important to be ready for the fall marching band season. So again, we did get some guidance from the Music Association on how that can happen and what processes we need to put in place, and we will follow those guidelines and move forward with them.
So we're going to start to wrap this up, but I want to kind of address parents if they have concerns still about the school year or anything that's in the draft of the plans. How would they go about asking you guys or addressing those issues? How would you like folks to do that might watch this?
Well, if they just have a comment or a question about the plan, right now there is a comment form attached to the plan, and they can use that, and I'm monitoring that. The board will consider all of those comments and changes to the plan at their meeting this next Tuesday, the 14th. They can email any of us at any time. I would suggest that if anybody has a direct question, they just give me a call right now. The administrators are in and out on vacation. That's why Mr. Bandy's not here today, as he's on vacation. So if you do email one of the administrators, just be patient as they'll get back to you when they return from their time off. I do like them to take July time because that's when the kids aren't around, right? So email probably is the best option, but if it's an immediate one and you just really want to talk to somebody, go ahead and give my office a call, and I'll return your call or talk to you if I'm available at the time. But or make a comment on the comment form if it's a general comment that you just want us to consider as we're working through the draft.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Is there any last thoughts anybody would like to share before we finish?
I'm going to go back to what Mark first said. Is that what you're going to go back to? That we're just really
We're
looking
just
forward,
Yeah, can't wait to have them
forward
back.
to the kids. We want the teachers and the kids back. We miss them terribly, and school's just not the same without kids.
I was going to say, it's been an extended summer vacation.
No, it has not.
No?
I
No?
think it's been way more work than having the kids here, but yeah, we miss them, and we're excited for them to get back. We'd love some normalcy. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but we'll do our best to help the kids have a great school year, and looking forward to it. Any last comments from you two?
I agree.
Yeah, completely agree.
Well, I thank everybody for coming in.
Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you.
Thank you.